Dear students, in the last video I had gone through some of the kingdoms like Monera, Protista, Mycota, and the next one is Metaphyta, that is nothing but kingdom Plantae we are discussing now. Right? In kingdom Plantae, classification of plants has been done. After the classification of plants, so we had taken one group of plants, that is algae, that is which comes under Halophyta. After the algae, bryophytes, and now we shall start with the next group of plants, that is pteridophytes. Pteridophyta, right? So these are usually called in Kannada Ucha Sasyagalu anta kariತೀವಿ ಇವನ್ನ. So what is the unique characteristic features of these pteridophytes, right? So before going to see that one, I would like to mention the examples for all these pteridophytes. Selaginella, Lycopodium, right? So these are the best examples for pteridophytes, right? So in these plants, the unique features of these plants, one by one, we'll discuss. So first one is occurrence. Where do you get these plants? Where they are growing usually. So these plants are well differentiated plant body they have, and they have vascular bundle. They are usually terrestrial in nature. Terrestrial in nature, and some of themselves are growing even in water condition, I mean wet soil itself, right? So, and these Selaginella, Lycopodium are the plants so whose body is having definite roots, stem, as well as leaves are seen usually in these plants, and these are the first land plants we say. So these are the first land plants. Why? Because they are not completely depending upon both soil as well as water as amphibian plants. So these become terrestrial one. They independently live themselves. There is no need of water for their reproduction. That's why. So these are the first land plants, we call them. And the unique feature, important feature of these plants is, for the first time, so vascular bundles were seen in these plants. Means these vascular bundles were primitive type of vascular bundles were seen. Vascular bundles, they include both xylem as well as phloem. Both of these tissues are present in these plants. So these are hence called as vascular plants. These are called as vascular plants. And these plants do not bear any seeds. Hence these are called as vascular cryptogams. Vascular cryptogams. These are called as vascular cryptogams. Why? Because these have vascular bundles, and these are called as cryptogams. Why? Because they are non-flowering, means they do not bear any seeds. Hence they are commonly known as vascular cryptogams, right? And these are also said to be as seedless plants. So why these are called as seedless plants? Why? Because they do not produce, these plants do not produce any seeds. Hence they are seedless plants. And these are also named as seedless embryophytes. These are commonly known as seedless embryophytes. Why? Because, so you know why they are called as seedless? They do not produce any seeds. But embryophytes they are called as. Why? Because these are the first plants which produce embryo. There is a definite embryo produced by these plants, right? So, but this embryo is not at all present in a definite seed, right? Hence, these are called as seedless embryophytes, right? So, this is a unique feature of these plants. Once again, next characteristic feature. So, these are spore producing plants, especially means the dominant phase of the life cycle of these plants is sporophyte. Already in the previous class I have told there are two generations. Some of the plants that come across, their example is amphibian plants, and the next one is pteridophytes, right? Bryophytes as well as pteridophytes have two generations. They are alternatively occurring in the life cycle of these plants. One is sporophytic plant, second one is gametophytic plant, right? So in these plants, sporophytic generation is dominant over here. Sporophytic generation is dominant over here. So these usually produce spores. These plants produce spores, and these spores are present inside a compartment or the chamber called as sporangium. Right? Spores are enclosed inside the sporangium, and this sporangium usually present inside the leaf, and that leaf containing sporangium called as sporophyll. Sporophyll is the structure of the leaf which contains sporangium. Sporangium contains spores, right? So these sporophylls are usually producing two types of spores. Hence they are named as heterospores. Means two types of spores are born on the plants, that is sporophytes. One type of spores are microspores, and second type of spores are macrospores. Based on the type of spores which are produced inside the leaves, that is sporophyll. The sporophyll is named as microsporophyll and megasporophyll, right? So these sporophylls are of two types. One is microsporophyll and megasporophyll. And the two types of leaves it produces means Lycopodium salacinella, right? Chlorella are the best example for this one. These plants produce leaves which contains sporangium, which contains spores, and those spores producing plants, that generation of the plants is called as sporophytic generation, right? These all sporophylls together form one cone-like structure which is called as strobilus. Sporophylls all together form strobilus. This is also simply called as cone. Like this, inside the cone you will come across many sporophylls. Sporophylls contain sporangium. Sporangium contains spores, and those spores, when they are coming out of the sporangium, they grow into new individual, and that new individual will be always gametophytic plant, right? According to alternation of generation, as we had discussed in the last class. So alternation of generation is seen in these group of plants also. One is sporophytic generation, second one is gametophytic generation. Here spores, they grow into new individual, and that new individual will be gametophytic plant. That will be gametophytic plant, and this gametophytic plant is small, photosynthetic, microscopic in nature, and this gametophytic plant, so which produce gametes, that is male as well as female gametes are produced by this plant, and these gametes, male and female gametes, both fuse together form zygote, and this zygote grows once again into sporophyte. Sporophytic plant. So this is how alternation of generation is seen in these plants. Alternation of generation. Once it grows into gametophytic plant, and gametophytic plant produces sporophytic plant, and both of them are alternatively grown. Over here, this is alternation of generation in case of pteridophytes, right? So this is about brief explanation regarding these pteridophytes. So next group of plants is Gymnosperms. Next group is Gymnosperms. So the meaning of this word itself says what kind of plants these are. Gymnos or gymnas means naked. Sperma means seed. These are the group of plants which are producing naked seeds, means seeds are not enclosed with fruit wall, and such kinds of seed bearing plants are known as gymnosperms. Seed bearing plants are known as gymnosperms, as the name suggests. And these special kind of plants, best example already you know better, cycas, pinus, neetum, right? Neetum, ginkgo. These are the best example for gymnosperms. As you know the structure of the plant body of these cycas, pinus, you are so familiar with, right? So these are looking to be as if the coconut tree, and these are long living plants. They are growing near about thousands of years, right? They grow about, and such kind of plants are usually growing in colder regions. And once upon a time, the whole gymnosperms, they were covering the entire world in those days, in Jurassic period. So these were dominant plants in those days. But nowadays they have been restricted to only colder regions, right? And a characteristic feature of some gymnosperms, when we go through that moment, gymnosperms, the best example is the cycas. When we see the structure of this cycas, it looks to be as coconut tree. this kind of plant. So cycas is, and the cycas has, these are the group of plants which produce usually a rosette of leaves at the top of the tree or at the top of the stem, right? And these leaves are usually compound leaves. Compound leaves. What are simple leaves? What are compound leaves? Thoroughly you study in PUC, right? So these are compound leaves, especially pinnate leaf. Compound leaves, they are called as pinnate leaf. Compound leaves, these are called as, and stem is long unbranched one. Sometimes it may be branched. In case of pinus you will find short branches, long branches, like that. Branched or unbranched plant body they have, right? Woody stem they have, right? And such kinds of plants, usually they bear cones. These plants bear cones. So you will find here cone, right? And this cone is produced in different plants. Male plant as well as female plant, both are separate over here, right? So this is male plant which produces male cone. In the same way, female plant produces female cone, right? So like this, cones are produced over here, and these cones are made up of so many number of leaves, and those leaves already you know sporophylls they are called as. Spore producing leaves there are. All those leaves together form a cone-like structure, and that cone may be male cone or it may be female cone. Cones are of two types. One is male cone and the second one is female cone. Male cone is produced in male plant. Female cone is produced in female plant, right? Female plant. So one example I will show here. This is male cone which has many number of leaves like structure, and those leaves are called as sporophylls. These are sporophylls. And these sporophylls, whenever we analyze, they produce many number of spores over it. These are spores, right? These spores which are produced by the plant which is said as sporophytic plant. This is sporophytic plant. Sporophytic plant is dominant over here. Dominant generation. Sporophytic plant is dominant over here. Gametophytic plant is not dominant over here. Right? It is living for about short period. Right? These spores are produced over here. So these are usually male gametes. In the same way, female cone will also be there. This is female cone which produce megaspore. It is called as megaspore. These are microspores. These are right. Microspores act as male gametes. This is megaspore. This is acting as female gamete, and these two fuse each other, forming zygote. When male gamete come across this female gamete and both of them fuse themselves, and this becomes a zygote. And this zygote is nothing but, it becomes a seed. And this seed doesn't have any fruit wall around it. Hence, this seed is naked seed. And the plants which bear naked seeds are called as gymnosperms. Gymnosperms. So, this is how the reproduction that occurs in case of these gymnosperms.